Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Mehul, and in this video, let's just go ahead and discuss about future of IDEs and future of how developers would work online in editors. So this video is a little bit in depth of, we'll cover a few solutions like Stackblitz, replete, even Codedamn playgrounds, code sandbox, GitHub code spaces, everything like that. So here are my views on what is the future, how everything would work out, and what you should do as a developer today. If you're new here, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon. This is free of cost and helps the channel grow. So let's start off with the very basics, that is how things work today. So today, if you want to develop a software or anything, first thing you will do is you will download an editor. Now this could be Visual Studio Code, which is the most popular one. This could be Sublime Text. This could be Atom, which is now retired, which was also by GitHub, which is owned by Microsoft now. So once you download an editor, it's pretty straightforward. You just open your file system and you start working. But this time, the time we are living through right now, you're going to see a lot of applications are actually moving to the cloud. And the way to access these applications through cloud, the most popular way right now is through web browsers, right? So you have Slack as your application, which you can even download, or you can have slack.com. You have WhatsApp, which you can download, or web.whatsapp.com. You have tools like FFmpeg, which also come as a SaaS application now, thanks to the Wasm builds and Wasm libraries of stuff. So you see a lot of things are actually moving to the cloud. One thing which isn't or hasn't moved to the cloud yet is the actual development of the software itself. Now, what does that mean? That means the IDE part of the layer itself onto the web browsers. And why is that? Well, that is primarily because as developers, you don't only just use a text editor for editing files, you parallelly use terminals, you parallelly run applications which open on different ports, you have web browsers running, you have all sorts of things going on. Shifting this whole flow onto web browsers require a lot of things to be done in the right place, speed wise, security wise, reliability wise, everything. So let's just discuss what current potential solutions are for shifting the coding part of things to the web and how they work compared to your local solutions. So I'm going to start off with the first category of solutions which I identify. That is, these solutions run in the browser itself, but they are not using cloud as such for your compute part, right? So the best player which comes to my mind in this case is Stackblitz. Stackblitz is a service which allows you to run code in the browser through a link, but the difference here is, and it's amazing that they're able to do this, the difference there is that they're running the piece of code within your own machine, right? So the code never leaves your system, the code never leaves your browser, it's running within your own machine. So the compute does not happen on cloud, the compute happens on the instance or the computer which you own. That is why Stackblitz is something which, can scale pretty much very easily to millions of people because they are not handling the compute part. The disadvantage of solutions like Stackblitz right now is because they don't use a cloud instance, because they don't use a Linux environment, they are emulated versions of things, right? So even if they allow you to run Node.js, or even if they allow you to run something in the browser, those environments are pretty much emulated because the underlying native APIs, the underlying native systems have been proxied into either JavaScript world or either some sort of Wasm build or Wasm fixing, right? So for example, you probably cannot fully utilize the networking stack. You probably cannot fully utilize the underlying, let's say, crypto stack. If you're talking about Node.js, you could not probably use packages like bcrypt in Stackblitz and so on. But on an overview level, it's a much better solution because you still get the ability to have ready-made environments available to you on a click of a link. But it's just a little abstraction over a simple bash script. I feel if you have a system configured, you can run a bash script, you can get the same environment. It's of course not clean way because you will have your file system polluted and everything. But that is how this first category of IDEs are working online. They are using your machine as the compute, but they use everything else like, code storage or maybe even real-time collaboration on their own servers. Stackblitz is one example. There might be other players in the space, but I'm not sure if I know any other player who actively is developing web containers like Stackblitz is. So they are the most prominent player in this category, which also defines this category. The second category of players in this domain is the players who use a thin shell on the client for the IDE part, but all the processing and everything happens on the server. Now, this is where most of the current players reside, including Codedamm's playgrounds, including Replit, including Glitch, including everything, which you pretty much know. For example, in our case, what we do is we launch a thin Monaco editor on the front end, which acts like our IDE in a way, but we build all the other functionality outside of it. The file system, the terminal, the live preview, the automatic refreshing, the IDE controls, and everything. So we build that around the basic editor, which is the Monaco, and the rest of the compute happens on the cloud, right? So whenever you make a change to the file gets saved to the remote computer. The remote computer then rebuilds the thing, whatever you are building on, and then your live preview gets updated. So this means that you as a person can pretty much work on heavy projects even on a lightweight machine. You can just bring your Chromebook, open a Codedamn playground or open a Replit instance, and you can just start working on whatever you were working on. That might require high memory usage, that might require constant CPU usage, for example, and it'll just work out of the box. Plus, you can also have long-running processes like Discord bots. You can have long-running scripts running on this interface, which would not be possible with solutions like Stackblitz because they just run your projects locally. They run it within your browser. So they are active as long as your tab is open or as long as your instance is open. In this category, obviously, like I mentioned, Replit falls, Codedamn playgrounds fall, Glitch falls. A bunch of other players are also here, but I feel like there are just single-digit companies who can do it at scale. We are 90% there. We still have things to fix, we still have stuff to do, and we always will, but we feel like we are pretty solid in terms of the tech stack which we have chosen, and the things which we are doing over the next 1-2 months would just change the game and would make Codedamn playgrounds extremely solid and extremely efficient for building high volume, high traffic projects as well on the platform. Third category of players, which I feel is also important to address, is the players who use the VS Code server itself and just dump the whole UI in front of you. Now for this, I feel Code Server, for example, is a good example, because Code Server, what they do is they provide you a binary which you execute on a remote Linux machine. Let's say you fire up an EC2 instance and you start a Code Server, and they will give you a UI which lets you interact with the file system of the instance through almost like 95% VS Code or sometimes even 100% VS Code like things. Extensions, features, syntax highlighting, language server protocol, everything is included. The difference here is that this is actually a copy of VS Code, pretty much literally a copy of VS Code on your browser, which is technically running on a server, but the UI and everything is exposed to the browser. Now, let me just back it up how this differs from what we are doing, for example, at Codedamn or what Replit is doing. In case of Replit, it's easy because Replit does not use VS Code anymore. They just use Code Mirror. For our case, we use Monaco as the lightweight editor itself, right? So Monaco in an instance is a lightweight replacement of VS Code itself, but the rest of the functionality, like for example at Codedamn, we built the playground for labs and challenges and things where we can evaluate stuff as well. So for that, we have to hook into a lot of pipelines or in a lot of processes. When you click a run button, before your code on the editor gets saved, we want to execute it, we want to test it, and so on. So we want full end-to-end control over your development environment. At the same time, we want to be as transparent as possible between your coding environment and the preview which you get. So what we are doing is we are building a custom full interface and environment from scratch, where we just use Monaco as the front-end IDE or the front-end editor for you to edit code. The third category which I'm talking about, which is, Code Server, for example, or GitHub Codespaces even, is that they pretty much dump the whole VS Code interface itself on the browser, right? This is great if you want to actually use VS Code on the browser itself, but again, you miss out on a bunch of things. The first one, which I feel, is performance, surprisingly. Why? Because when you're working with a system like this, What they essentially do is that they boot up an instance anywhere in the world and they connect it with your browser, and all of the communication, even your keystrokes, even if the new file is creating, even if something is happening in the terminal, that is done over the network. And it is possible that routes or that things are not optimized in the binary. So it is possible that you feel that the syntax highlighting takes a bunch of seconds to appear. When you create a new file, it's not as responsive as you will feel in VS Code itself in your local setup. If you're writing a terminal command, or if you're doing something which let's say crashes your server, your code might get lost. If you're hosting your server yourself, your code might just get lost in a way, because these binaries, code server for example, requires you to host it on your own. They also have SaaS solutions, but if you're using VS Code, let's say yourself, you have to host it. So there's a thin line between the second category and the third category, but I'm sure that the second category gives developers who are building the platform much more control over the performance and optimizations than the third one. Because let's say if Codedamn decides to use VS Code or Code Server as a standalone single binary, then we pretty much would have to go through the whole source code of VS Code to understand where to exactly put our hooks, where let's say if I click on run button, something else should happen. If I want to back your code on S3 buckets, or just store it on some Git repo, how to make that automatic. All of that is extremely time consuming, because you have to go through a huge amount of code base. VS Code is huge, so this leaves developers with a very little flexibility in terms of building a new experience. That is why Replete does not use such solutions. That is why Glitch does not use such solutions, and that is why we also do not use such solutions, because we need customization and we need this level of optimization in our products. These are the three categories, where the category 2 and 3 are also pretty much, there's a thin line between them. But category 1 is interesting, where a lot of compute happens on your own machines. Now let's talk about the future of coding, right? I feel that local development is not going anywhere anytime soon. People will keep on developing stuff locally. People will keep on doing stuff locally for the coming future, especially with these platforms like Stackblitz, which restore the compute on your own systems. It sounds awesome, but it's actually a huge pain if you're trying to do anything outside the normal stuff. If you're trying to use any Linux commands, if you're trying to use any native things which require you to have a system in place, you will be stuck and you will pretty much have no way of getting out. So with development, it's extremely frustrating if you are stuck in a situation where you cannot do anything about it at all. With platforms like Replete and Codedamn Playgrounds and even Glitch, I feel these platforms are still great for lightweight editing and even for serious project building, but it's still a long way to beat the local experience, the local development experience. Why? Because for most of these platforms, let's say even for Playgrounds, if you're starting a project in development mode, in order for us to provide you the best experience, the reviews also have to be extremely fast, right? But when you are using a Codedamn Playground, or when you are using a Replete, let's say Ripple, or when you're using Glitch, when you're running these projects in development, you are technically not working on a local host, because your local host is your own computer. That means the network bandwidth or the network transfer is extremely fast. But with Codedamn or with Replete, with pretty much any other cloud provider as well, if you're working on these projects locally, your network would always be slower, right? And with local builds, it is extremely likely that the file sizes you have is large. It's in megabytes or something, and it's not cached in a way. So for every single change or every single build, you're probably downloading, tens of megabytes of data in the preview side of things. This is fine for people who have high-speed internet connections, but this might be a little janky experience for people who are trying to do serious coding, but on low power device, more than low power device, on low network devices, right? And that is where solutions like Stackblitz surprisingly help, because they do the compute locally. Their network stack is also local. Therefore, they don't suffer with this problem. They suffer with a different category of problems, right? The cloud IDEs suffer with a different category of problems. But, speaking about it and thinking about it, it almost seems like that local development, not the cloud or not the, Stackblitz like solution, local development is the best of all because you get the local stack, you get the local network, but you also get access to your local Linux environment. That is why I feel like cloud environments do provide certain benefits, like, single click link to your projects, multiplayer support, just code from anywhere, wherever you want. But at the same time, there's a huge amount of optimization needed on the networking side. There's a huge amount of optimization on the compute allocation side, the speed and everything. And at Codedamn, because we are an edtech solution, we are an edtech company and we want to promote programming, it makes absolute sense for us to invest more on a tool like this and drive this technology further, because the more we do this, the better learning experience it will be for people who have, let's say, taken part in full stack learning path, or who are building these smart contracts with Solidity or inside Web3 learning path. So rest assured, we would definitely be working on this front even more in the coming months. But this is the state of online editors, and this is the state of how things happen in the development world at the moment. Let me know how you like this video. This was my little analysis and little just speaking out my thoughts and speaking out my mind. That is all for this video. Hopefully you learned something from it. If you did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. That really helps. I'm gonna see you in the next video really soon. If you're still watching this video, make sure you comment down in the comment section, I watched this video till the end. Also, if you're not part of Codedamn's Discord community, you're missing out a lot on events which we organize on a weekly basis to code. You already know the drill. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thank you so much for watching.